The call came at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was in the middle of a client presentation when my phone buzzed with that particular pattern I'd set for Dad's number. 3 short vibrations, then 2 long ones. Our little code. I excused myself, stepping into the hallway of our downtown office building, my heels clicking against marble. Trinity? The voice wasn't Dad's. It was Sophia, my stepsister, her tone dripping with fake concern. Your father's had a stroke. He's at Memorial Hospital. The world tilted sideways. I'm Trinity Johnston, and that moment marked the beginning of the end. Or maybe the end of the beginning. I'm still not sure which. I broke every speed limit getting to Memorial, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The hospital lobby was a blur of antiseptic smell and squeaking shoes. But when I reached the 3rd floor, Simone, my stepmother, stood outside Dad's room like a sentinel in Chanel. Oh, Trinity! Her perfectly lined lips curved downward. Raymond's resting. He's very disoriented, dear. The doctors say no visitors except immediate family. I am immediate family, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. I'm his daughter. Of course you are, sweetie. Simone's hand touched my arm. I wanted to shake it off. But the medical power of attorney gives me final say, and right now, Raymond needs calm. You understand? I didn't understand. Not until a hospital administrator approached with a clipboard, showing me the paperwork. There it was, a medical POA dated just last week, giving Simone complete control. This can't be right, I whispered. Dad would never. He signed it himself. Trinity. Simone's voice carried down the hall. Perhaps if you'd been around more often. The words stung because they were designed to. I had been around, more than ever these past few months. Dad and I had finally broken through years of distance, rebuilt what Simone had spent a decade trying to destroy. That's when I saw Alan, my stepbrother, emerge from Dad's room with his phone out. Mom, the transport company's here. They can take him to Oakwood Care Center tonight. Oakwood! My blood ran cold. That's a bargain basement facility on the edge of town. Dad has premium insurance. He should be at... The doctors recommend moving him quickly. Simone cut in. We've already made arrangements. I stood there, watching them orchestrate my father's life like puppet masters, remembering our last video call just yesterday. Dad had seemed urgent, almost afraid. Trinity, listen carefully, he'd said, his face close to the screen. In my library, behind the Hemingway collection, there's a loose panel. Inside is a metal box. If anything happens... He'd paused, glancing over his shoulder. Get it. Promise me. Dad, you're scaring me. Promise me, Trin. I promise. Now, watching Simone direct orderlies like a theater director, I understood his fear. Something was very wrong. I want to see him, I demanded. Just for a minute. Simone's eyes hardened. Security, she called out. We have an unauthorized visitor causing distress. A guard approached, his face apologetic. Mom, I'll need you to leave the floor. You can't do this, I said, but Simone just smiled that razor-thin smile. I can, dear. I'm his wife. Now, why don't you go home and rest? We'll call if there's any change. I backed away, my mind racing. They wouldn't let me near him tonight, but the house, they'd be occupied here for hours. The library would be empty. In the parking lot, I sat in my car and pulled up the video call from yesterday. Dad's face filled my screen, worried but determined. If anything happens, he'd said. What did he know? I started the engine, my hands steady now. They thought they had all the power, all the control. But Dad had left me something in that box, something important enough to frighten him, something important enough to make Simone bar me from his hospital room. My phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. "Don't make this difficult, Trinity. Just let us handle things." I didn't reply. Instead, I pulled up the security code Dad had given me for the estate's gate and started driving. They wanted to play family? Fine. But they'd forgotten one thing. I was Raymond Johnston's daughter, and I never break a promise. The estate's security lights cast long shadows across the manicured lawn as I pulled up to the gate. My fingers trembled slightly as I punched in the code. 4472-1. The gate swung open silently. They hadn't changed it yet. I parked behind the garage, out of sight from the main house. The spare key was still hidden in the hollow garden gnome, Dad's idea of a joke. Inside, the house felt different, colder. Sophia's designer bag was thrown carelessly on the entryway table, next to Alan's car keys. They'd already started moving in. The library door creaked slightly as I pushed it open. Moonlight filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating rows of leather-bound books. Dad's sanctuary. I made my way to the Hemingway collection, running my fingers along the spines until I felt it, a slight give in the wooden panel behind. "Come on," I whispered, pressing harder. The panel popped free with a soft click. "Looking for something?" I spun around. Felix stood in the doorway, his laptop bag slung over his shoulder. My heart nearly stopped before I remembered. I'd texted him to meet me here. "Jesus, Felix, make some noise next time." He grinned, stepping into the room. "Sorry, didn't want to blow your covert operation. Find it yet?" I reached into the wall cavity and pulled out a metal box, about the size of a thick novel. "Got it. Let me see that lock," Felix said, pulling out some tools. "Basic tumbler system. Give me 2 minutes." While he worked, I kept watch at the door. The house creaked and settled around us, each sound making my pulse jump. "There," Felix muttered. The lock clicked open. Inside the box, we found 3 items: a USB drive, a manila envelope, and a letter addressed to Wallace Ferguson, Dad's lawyer. I opened the envelope first. Inside was a will, dated 2 weeks ago, with Dad's signature and a notary stamp. "Holy shit!" Felix whispered, reading over my shoulder. "He left everything to you. The company, the estate, all of it. Which means the will Simone's probably waving around is fake." Felix was already plugging the USB drive into his laptop. "Let's see what's on here." A video file appeared. Dad's face filled the screen, the timestamp showing yesterday's date. "Trinity," he began, his voice tight. "If you're watching this, something's happened to me. Simone and her kids, they're not who they pretend to be. I've discovered some disturbing things about their past, about what they did to Simone's first husband." I grabbed Felix's arm. "Play that again." We watched it 3 more times. Dad detailed everything. How he'd caught Simone and Alan forging documents. How Sophia had been embezzling from the company. How they'd planned to take control once he was out of the picture. "The metadata checks out," Felix said, typing rapidly. "This video's authentic, recorded yesterday at 9:47 p.m. And look at this. There's a digital trail showing someone accessed your dad's electronic signature program right after. Used it to create a new power of attorney." "Can you prove it was them?" Felix's grin turned predatory. "Already tracking the IP address. It came from Alan's laptop. Footsteps suddenly echoed from the hallway. I shoved everything back into the box as Felix closed his laptop. "Hide!" I hissed, pushing him toward the heavy curtains. The door opened. Simone stood there, still in her hospital clothes, but somehow looking immaculate. Trinity. Her voice was ice. "Breaking and entering now." I held the box behind my back. "It's not breaking in when you have a key." "A key you no longer have permission to use." She stepped closer. "What are you holding?" "Nothing that concerns you." Her eyes narrowed. "Everything in this house concerns me. I am your father's wife. And I'm his daughter, the one he trusted." Something dangerous flashed across her face. "Trusted? Is that what you think? Poor Trinity, always desperate for Daddy's approval. He only reconnected with you out of guilt." I smiled, feeling the weight of the box against my spine. "Is that what helps you sleep at night, Simone? Believing your own lies?" "Security will be here in 3 minutes," she said, pulling out her phone. "I suggest you leave. Now." I walked past her, straight-backed and calm. Felix would slip out once the coast was clear. We had what we needed. In my car, my hands finally started shaking. I pulled out my phone and dialed Wallace's number. "It's Trinity," I said when he answered. "We need to talk. I have something you need to see." There was a long pause. "My office. First thing tomorrow. Come through the back entrance." I started the engine, watching Simone's silhouette in the library window. She thought she'd won. They all did. But Dad's video was about to change everything. The box sat heavy in my passenger seat as I drove away. Inside it was more than evidence. It was ammunition. And I intended to use every bullet. The country club dining room buzzed with whispers as Sophia strutted through, wearing Dad's company badge like a crown. She'd called this lunch meeting to update family friends on the situation. I sat in the corner, uninvited but present, watching the performance unfold. "Daddy's condition is stable," Sophia announced to the gathered crowd, her voice carrying. "As the new chief executive, I'll be implementing changes he and I discussed before his unfortunate decline." I sipped my water, noting how Varda, Dad's old business partner, frowned at that statement. She caught my eye and gave a subtle headshake. "Of course," Simone added, patting Sophia's hand. Raymond's mental state had been deteriorating for months, making questionable decisions, reaching out to estranged relatives. Her gaze slid meaningfully toward me. The implied message was clear. "Don't trust Trinity. She's just here for the money." My phone buzzed. A text from Felix. "Got proof. Alan's IP matches the forged POA timestamp. Want me to send it to Wallace?" I typed back. "Not yet. Let them dig deeper." As if on cue, Alan swaggered in, late as usual. He'd moved into Dad's study yesterday, already smoking those expensive cigars Dad had been saving for special occasions. "Sorry I'm delayed," he announced. "Had to handle some estate matters. You know how it is." He winked at one of Dad's older business associates, who looked distinctly uncomfortable. I stood up, ready to leave, when Sophia intercepted me by the door. "Enjoying the show, sis?" Her smile was razor sharp. "You should really stop coming to these events. It's getting embarrassing." "Almost as embarrassing as pretending you know how to run a media company." Her smile faltered. "I've been training for this my whole life." "Really? Is that what you call reading through Dad's private files last week? Training?" Sophia's face went white. "How did you—" "I know a lot of things, Sophia. Like how you've been meeting with rival companies behind Dad's back. Planning hostile takeovers requires practice, right?" Before she could respond, I slipped past her and out into the lobby. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from restraint. I drove straight to Oakwood Care Centre, the cheap facility where they'd stashed Dad. I'd borrowed scrubs from a nurse friend, and with my hair up and a fake ID, I blended in with the staff. Dad's room was at the end of a dim hallway. Through the window, I could see him struggling to sit up, fighting against the sedatives they kept him on. "Want Trinity," he mumbled to the nurse, checking his vitals. "My daughter." "Shh," the nurse said, adjusting his IV. "Your wife said no visitors, except family." I pressed my hand against the glass, fighting back tears. Then I heard voices approaching, Simone and a doctor. "Keep him comfortable," Simone was saying. "We don't want him getting agitated, making calls. Mrs. Johnston, with all due respect, this level of sedation isn't necessary." "I have medical power of attorney, unless you'd like us to move him to another facility." I ducked into a supply closet as they passed. My phone buzzed again. "Wallace. Trinity," he whispered when I answered. "We need to talk. These company changes Sophia's implementing, they're not legal without board approval." "I know. And the POA. Something's not right. The notary stamp. I've seen it before." "Meet me tomorrow," I said. "Bring everything you have." After they left, I snuck one last look at Dad. His eyes were clearer for a moment, and I swear he saw me through the window. His hand twitched like he was trying to wave. "Soon," I mouthed. "I promise." Back in my car, I called Felix. "How's the digital trail looking?" "Better than we hoped," he said. "Found emails between Simone and Alan discussing medication dosages. They were planning something, Trinity. The stroke, it might not have been natural." My grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Send everything to my encrypted drive. And Felix? Start looking into Simone's first husband. Dad mentioned something about him in the video." "Already on it. You should see what I found about his accident." I ended the call and sat there, watching the sun set behind the care center. They thought they had it all figured out, the perfect plan, the perfect crime, but they'd forgotten something crucial about me. I was Raymond Johnston's daughter, and like him, I knew how to play the long game. My phone lit up with a text from Simone. "Family dinner tomorrow. Your presence is not required." I smiled and typed back, "Don't worry, I'll be there in spirit." And in more ways than they could possibly imagine. Wallace's office felt smaller at night, the walls closing in as I spread the evidence across his desk. The flash drive, the will, the emails Felix had uncovered. "This is..." Wallace adjusted his glasses, staring at the video of Dad. "This is serious, Trinity. If what Raymond said about Simone's first husband is true..." "It is. Felix found the police reports. Another convenient medical emergency. Another contested will." Wallace sank into his chair. "I should have seen it. The signs were there." "You can help me now." I leaned forward. "File an injunction. Stop them from transferring any more assets." He picked up Dad's letter, his hands trembling slightly. "This puts me in a difficult position. I'm still technically their lawyer." "You're my father's lawyer, and he trusted you to do the right thing." Before Wallace could respond, his office door burst open. Sophia stormed in, her face flushed with rage. "What the hell is this?" She slammed a paper onto the desk. It was a court notice, the temporary injunction I'd filed that morning. "Legal documentation," I said calmly. "You should recognize it, given how many fake versions you've created lately." "You little..." She caught herself, smoothing her designer blazer. Wallace, she's trying to have Daddy declared mentally unfit. She wants to steal everything we've worked for. Everything you've worked for? I stood up. You mean everything you've stolen? Tell me, Sophia, how many board members did you threaten to get your CEO position? I earned that role by forging documents or by helping your mother manipulate Dad's medication. Sophia's face went white. Behind her, Wallace was quietly gathering the evidence into a folder. You're delusional, Sophia spat. Everyone knows you're just bitter because Daddy chose us. He never wanted you around. You were a mistake he had to live with. I smiled, pulling out my phone. Really? Let's ask the nursing staff at Oakwood about that. The ones who hear him asking for me every day, while you keep him drugged into silence. You've been sneaking into the facility? Her eyes narrowed. I'll have you arrested. Go ahead. I'm sure the police would love to hear about Alan's late-night visit to Dad's nurse, the one he tried to bribe to destroy Dad's phone. That hit home. Sophia's composure cracked. You don't know what you're dealing with, she hissed. Mom will destroy you. Like she destroyed her first husband? The color drained from Sophia's face. In the silence, Wallace cleared his throat. I think, he said carefully, we should schedule a formal will reading, with all parties present. You can't, Sophia protested. Mom has the only valid will. Actually, Wallace interrupted, as your father's legal counsel, I'm obligated to present all relevant documentation, including this. He held up Dad's notarized will. Sophia's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and I saw real fear flash across her face. This isn't over, she said, backing toward the door. You have no idea what you've started. After she left, Wallace turned to me. You know they'll fight this. Let them. I picked up Dad's letter. Sometimes fighting is exactly what we need them to do. My phone lit up with a text from Felix. Found something big. Simone's offshore accounts. Call me. Wallace, I said, how quickly can you schedule that reading? Given the circumstances. 3 days. But Trinity. He hesitated. Be careful. People who feel cornered can be dangerous. I thought of Dad, lying in that bare room at Oakwood, asking for me through the haze of sedatives. I'm not the one who should be afraid, I said quietly. Outside, rain had started to fall. My phone buzzed again, a news alert. Someone had leaked documents suggesting fraud at Dad's company, all pointing to Sophia's recent appointments. I smiled, remembering Felix's promise to let the truth slip out slowly. Another text came through, this one from Simone. You're making a terrible mistake. Back off now, while you still can. I typed back. Funny, that's what your first husband said, right before his accident. No response. In my car, I pulled up the video of Dad one more time. His face filled the screen, determined and clear-eyed. Be careful, Trinity, he'd said, but be strong. The truth is your shield. I started the engine, watching rain streak down the windshield. 3 days until the will reading. 3 days for them to unravel completely. They thought they were playing chess, but this was never about winning or losing. This was about justice, about truth. And truth, unlike power, doesn't care who wields it. It simply is. I pulled away from Wallace's office, already planning my next move. The storm was coming, and I intended to be ready when it hit. Felix's apartment looked like a command center, with multiple screens displaying data streams and document scans. He'd barely slept, dark circles under his eyes as he showed me what he'd found. "Look at this," he said, pulling up a series of emails. "Communications between Simone and Alan, dated 3 weeks before your dad's stroke. They're discussing medication schedules, dosages." I leaned closer. "That's not Dad's regular prescription, no." Felix's voice was grim. "It's a combination that, when mixed with his heart medication, could trigger a stroke." My hands clenched into fists. "They planned it." "There's more." He switched screens. "Simone's been moving money offshore. Small amounts at first, then larger transfers after your dad's stroke. And look who helped set up the accounts." A familiar name appeared. The nurse they'd tried to bribe at the hospital. "She's worked with them before," I whispered. "This wasn't their first time." My phone buzzed. A news alert. Someone had leaked documents showing irregularities in recent company decisions. Sophia's name was mentioned repeatedly. "Nice work," I said to Felix. He grinned. "I have no idea what you're talking about, but speaking of leaks..." He pulled up another screen. "Remember how Alan's been bragging about taking over your dad's study?" "Yeah? He's been accessing your dad's private server. Badly. Left digital fingerprints everywhere, including..." Felix typed rapidly. "This conversation with Simone about the forged POA." I read the messages, my blood running cold. They'd planned everything, down to the last detail. Except... "They didn't know about the video call," I said. "Dad reached out to me before they could stop him." A knock at the door made us both jump. Felix checked his security camera feed. "It's Wallace." The lawyer looked haunted when we let him in. "Trinity, we have a problem. Simone's trying to cancel the will reading." "She can't," I said. "It's legally required." "She's claiming Raymond's condition has worsened, that he's being transferred to a private facility. Out of state." My heart stopped. "When?" "Tomorrow morning. Early." I was already grabbing my coat. Felix called after me. "What are you going to do?" "Something stupid," I answered, heading for the door. "Keep digging. And Felix, release those transfer records. All of them." The drive to Oakwood felt endless. I parked around back, where the security cameras had convenient blind spots. My nurse's scrubs were still in the trunk. Inside, the night shift was changing over. Perfect timing. I slipped through the halls, hearing raised voices from Dad's room. "The transfer papers are signed," Simone was saying. "He leaves at 6 a.m. "Mrs. Johnston," the doctor protested, "moving him in this condition is perfectly legal. I have power of attorney." I pressed against the wall, recording everything on my phone. The doctor stormed out, nearly running into me. "Oh!" he said, then paused, looking closer. "You're not..." I pressed a finger to my lips, showing him Dad's real medical directive on my phone. His eyes widened. "How long have they been adjusting his medication?" I whispered. He glanced around, then wrote something on his notepad. "Check the logs. Night shift, 3 weeks ago. It's irregular. Would you testify to that?" He hesitated, then nodded. I waited until Simone left before slipping into Dad's room. His eyes were clearer tonight. They'd started tapering off the sedatives for transport. "Trinity?" His voice was weak but aware. "I'm here, Dad." I gripped his hand. "I found the box. I'm fixing everything." "Be careful. Simone, I know what she did. To you. To her first husband. We have proof." His eyes filled with tears. "My brave girl. Always. Fighting." Footsteps approached. I squeezed his hand one last time and ducked into the bathroom. Alan's voice drifted in. Mom says everything's ready. The new facility knows the rules. No visitors except family, Simone finished. Real family. I waited until they left before texting Wallace. Need emergency injunction. Tonight. They're moving him. His response was immediate. Already filed. Judge will see us in 1 hour. I looked at Dad, now sleeping peacefully. They thought they could just make him disappear, like they'd done before, like they'd planned all along. But they'd forgotten something crucial about the Johnston family. We don't disappear. We fight. My phone buzzed with breaking news. Financial irregularities revealed at Johnston Media. CEO Sophia Underwood under investigation. The storm wasn't coming anymore. It was already here. And I was just getting started. The emergency courtroom felt suffocating at midnight. Simone's lawyer kept droning about her rights as medical proxy, while Wallace calmly presented our evidence. The judge, a stern-faced woman in her 60s, studied the documents with growing concern. My phone vibrated. A text from Felix. Turn on the news. Now. I pulled up the live stream on my tablet. The headline made my heart race. Breaking. Fraud investigation expands. Suspicious death of previous spouse linked to media empire scandal. Simone's face went ash white as she saw the news alert on her own phone. Your Honor, Wallace said, given these new developments and the suspicious timing of this sudden transfer, we request an immediate stay. This is ridiculous, Simone snapped, standing up. I'm his wife. I have every right. Mrs. Johnston, the judge interrupted. Sit down. Mr. Ferguson, continue. Wallace produced Dad's video statement. Raymond Johnston recorded this the night before his stroke, expressing concerns about potential medical manipulation. Objection! Simone's lawyer shouted. This is hearsay from an incompetent... Play the video, the judge ordered. Dad's face appeared on the courtroom screen, clear and lucid. I fear for my safety, he said. Simone has been adjusting my medication. I've seen the bottles, heard the conversations, just like with Marcus, her first husband. Simone lunged for her phone, but it was too late. The damage was done. Your Honor, Wallace continued, we also have testimony from Dr. Roberts at Oakwood regarding irregular medication protocols. The judge held up her hand. I've heard enough. The transfer is suspended. Furthermore, she fixed Simone with a steel gaze. I'm appointing an independent medical guardian pending investigation. Ms. Johnston will have equal access to her father. You can't do this, Simone hissed. I can and I have. Court adjourned. In the hallway, Simone grabbed my arm. You think you're clever. You have no idea what's coming. I pulled free. Actually, I do. Check your email. Her phone dinged right on cue. Felix's timing was perfect. Another data dump hitting the press. Offshore account details, transfer records, everything. You little... Careful, I said softly. The reporters outside would love to hear what you're about to say. She spun around. Through the courthouse windows, we could see camera lights flickering. My phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Back door of courthouse. Now. Information about Alan. Excuse me, I said to Simone. I have a meeting about your son. The back corridor was dim. A woman stepped out of the shadows, the nurse from the hospital, the one they'd tried to bribe. I can't take it anymore, she whispered. Alan. He's planning to destroy evidence. In his mother's safe. Tonight. What evidence? Medical records. Real ones. Showing what they did to Mr. Johnston's medication. And she swallowed hard. Records from Marcus's death, too. I helped them back then. I can't do it again. I recorded everything on my phone, then called Felix. How fast can you get to the estate? I asked. We need to beat Alan to that safe. Already on my way. And Trinity, Sophia's trying to call an emergency board meeting. Tomorrow morning. Let her. I smiled grimly. The will reading is scheduled for right after. Perfect timing. Wallace caught up with me at my car. Trinity, be careful. They're desperate now. I'm counting on it. I showed him the nurse's statement. Get this to the DA. And Wallace? Thank you. For believing me. I believed your father, he said quietly. And he believed in you. Driving to the estate, I called Varda, Dad's old business partner. The board meeting. I said, can you stall it? Already done. Half the board won't attend without proper documentation. Sophia's throwing a fit. Good. Keep her busy. And Varda, watch your back. The estate loomed ahead, dark except for one light in Dad's study. Alan's car was parked crooked in the driveway. Felix's message flashed on my phone. Security system disabled. You have 20 minutes. I parked behind the garage, just like that first night, but this time I wasn't sneaking in to find evidence. I was walking in to end it. Through the window, I could see Alan frantically working at the safe behind Dad's desk. He didn't know the combination had already been changed, a fail-safe Dad had put in place weeks ago. My phone lit up one last time, a message from the hospital. Patient Raymond Johnston, showing marked improvement after medication adjustment, requesting family presence. I smiled in the darkness. The storm wasn't just coming anymore. It was here. And I was the lightning. The library felt different during the will reading. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating dust motes and tense faces. Simone sat ramrod straight in Dad's leather chair, Sophia and Alan flanking her like guards. Wallace arranged his papers at the desk, while Varda watched from the corner, arms crossed. Before we begin, Simone announced, I want to protest this reading. My husband is still alive, and significantly more lucid now that his medication has been corrected. Wallace interrupted. Shall we discuss why that is? Alan shifted uncomfortably. The bruise on his hand from fighting with the safe last night was clearly visible. Proceed, Simone said coldly. Wallace pulled out the forged will, the one they'd created. First, we have a will dated 3 weeks ago, leaving everything to Simone and her children. Sophia smirked at me. I kept my face neutral. However, Wallace continued, we also have this. He produced Dad's real will. Dated 2 weeks ago, properly notarized, with video confirmation of Raymond's wishes. Video? Alan's voice cracked. Yes. I stood up, connecting my laptop to the room's display screen. Dad was very thorough. The video began playing. Dad's face filled the screen, his voice strong and clear. I, Raymond Johnston, being of sound mind, declare this my final will and testament. I revoke all previous wills, specifically the fraudulent document created without my knowledge. Simone's knuckles went white on the armrests. To my wife, Simone, Dad continued, I leave nothing. Your attempts to manipulate my medication, just as you did with your first husband, Marcus, have not gone unnoticed. Sophia jumped up. This is ridiculous. He's clearly not. To my stepdaughter, Sophia, Dad went on. I leave nothing. The company records showing your embezzlement have been forwarded to the board. To Alan, I leave nothing. The security footage of you threatening my nurse has been preserved. Alan slumped in his chair, the fight draining from him. To my daughter Trinity, I leave everything. My company, my estate, my full inheritance. She alone has shown true loyalty and love. The video continued, but Simone had heard enough. She stood up, shaking. This is fabricated. Wallace, you know this isn't... Actually, Wallace said, I have the original notarized copy right here. And... He pulled out another document. A sworn statement from your former nurse about both Raymond's poisoning and Marcus's death. The door opened. 2 police detectives stepped in. Perfect timing, I said. Detective, I believe you'll find the evidence you need in that safe. The one Alan failed to crack last night. Alan bolted for the door, but was quickly intercepted. Mrs. Johnston, one detective said, we have some questions about your previous husband's death. Simone's composure finally cracked. You stupid girl, she snarled at me. You have no idea what you've done. I built this family. I controlled everything. That was your mistake, I said quietly. You were so busy controlling everything, you never noticed Dad was watching, recording, planning. You can't prove... The medication logs prove it. The offshore accounts prove it. The forged documents prove it. I stepped closer. Dad knew what you were doing. He just needed time to gather evidence, time to protect me. Sophia lunged at me, but Vada caught her arm. Don't make this worse, she warned. The detectives moved forward with handcuffs. Simone Johnston, you're under arrest for attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy. Alan and Sophia Underwood, you're under arrest for conspiracy and evidence tampering. Wallace, Simone tried one last time. You can't let this happen. We had an arrangement. My arrangement was with Raymond, Wallace said firmly. And justice. I watched as they were led away, Simone's designer heels clicking on the hardwood floors. Sophia's mascara ran as she sobbed. Alan just looked lost. After they were gone, Wallace handed me the official papers. Congratulations! You're now the sole heir and CEO of your father's company. Not quite finished, I said, pulling out my phone. Dad's waiting at the hospital. His real doctor says he can come home tomorrow. Vada squeezed my shoulder. Raymond would be proud. I looked around the library, at the books Dad loved, the life he'd built, the legacy he'd protected. He already is, I said softly. He trusted me to find the truth. That's all the pride I need. My phone buzzed with breaking news. Media empire scandal. Family arrested in murder plot. But I didn't need to read it. I had a hospital to visit, a father to bring home, and a promise to keep. The autumn breeze rustled through the estate's gardens as I helped Dad walk the familiar path. His steps were stronger now, his mind sharp and clear. The medical team had done wonders once they'd purged Simone's cocktail of drugs from his system. Ready to see your office? I asked, guiding him toward the company building adjacent to the estate. He squeezed my hand. Our office. Inside, employees smiled and welcomed him back. We'd spent the morning watching Simone's perp walk on the news, her designer outfit replaced by prison orange. The DA had called earlier. She'd agreed to a plea deal, confessing to Marcus's murder in exchange for a reduced sentence. Trinity. Felix appeared in the doorway of Dad's office, tablet in hand. The board meeting's about to start. Dad straightened his tie. Let's not keep them waiting. The boardroom fell silent as we entered. These were the same people who'd rubber-stamped Sophia's decisions just weeks ago. Now they sat nervously, watching Dad take his seat at the head of the table. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice strong, "we have some changes to discuss." I took my place beside him, spreading out the documents Wallace had prepared, the company restructuring plan, the new board appointments, the future we'd designed together during his recovery. "First," Dad continued, "I'd like to thank those who stood by the truth." He nodded to Varda. "And to address those who didn't." 3 board members shifted uncomfortably. "You'll find your resignation letters in front of you," I said. "Sign them now, or we can discuss your involvement in Sophia's fraud schemes publicly." Pens scratched paper quickly. After the meeting, Dad stood at his office window, looking out over the city. "You know what bothers me most," he said quietly. "Not the betrayal, not even the poison. It's that they thought they could erase you." "They didn't know me very well." "No." He smiled. "They saw what they wanted to see, the quiet daughter, the easy target." He turned to face me. "They never saw the lightning." My phone buzzed. Wallace with updates. Alan had taken a deal, turning state's evidence against his mother and sister. Sophia was fighting the charges, but the evidence was overwhelming. The nurse's testimony had sealed their fate. "Mr. Johnston," his assistant poked her head in, "the reporter from the Times is here for your interview." "Send her in," I said. "Dad, you ready to tell your story?" He straightened in his chair. "Our story." The reporter set up her recorder as we sat together, father and daughter, in the office they'd tried to steal from us. "I understand you've been through quite an ordeal," she began. Dad took my hand. "Actually, it's a story about truth, about justice, and about never underestimating your children." Later that evening, we sat in his library, our library now. The metal box that had started everything sat open on the desk. "I knew you'd find it," Dad said, touching the USB drive. "Knew you'd understand." "But you didn't know they'd try to kill you?" "No." He sighed. "I suspected Simone was dangerous. After I discovered what happened to Marcus, I started gathering evidence, but I thought I had more time." "You had enough time," I said. "You had me." A knock at the door. Felix with more news. "The DA's office called. They found Marcus's real autopsy results in Simone's safe. And..." He grinned. "Sophia's corporate passwords just unlocked a goldmine of offshore accounts." Dad nodded. "Make sure it all goes to Marcus's children. They deserve their father's justice too." I walked Felix out, then returned to find Dad holding an old photo. Me at graduation, before Simone, before everything changed. "I'm sorry," he said softly, "for letting her come between us, for all the years we lost." "We're here now." I sat beside him. "That's what matters." The setting sun painted the library gold, warming the leather books, the polished wood, the life we'd reclaimed. Outside, the estate grounds stretched peaceful and quiet. No more secrets, no more shadows. My phone lit up one last time, a message from Wallace. "Final paperwork filed. It's really over." Dad saw my smile. "What are you thinking?" I looked around the library, at the space where I'd found the hidden box, where I'd started this journey of justice and truth. "I'm thinking they called me just the daughter, like it was an insult." I met his eyes. "They never realized it was always my greatest strength." He squeezed my hand, and in the quiet of our victory, no more words were needed. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't in destroying your enemies, but in protecting what they tried to steal. Family, truth, justice, and love, always love.